You are listening to The Manual with Mike Sheridan. The opinions expressed here are purely that of the individuals in question and can sometimes be of an adult nature.
You're very welcome to another edition of The Manual with me, Mike Sheridan, and I'm joined by athlete, former UFC fighter, what was it, Dolphin Saver?
All-round good guy.
Cathal Pendred. Cathal, man, thanks for coming in. We've been trying to do this for a long time.
I know, yeah.
But you're a busy man because you're an entrepreneur now as well.
Yeah. Taking my shot at the business world now. It's taking up a lot more time than I actually thought. So it's nearly a good thing now I packed in the fight because
you wouldn't have the time.
No, I wouldn't have the time. Definitely not.
Because you kind of had we want to get to you because you've. One of the reasons we decided to do this was you were giving me shit over one of my reviews or something like that.
Yeah.
What were you giving me shit over again? It was Southpaw, was it?
Southpaw, yeah.
You're like, Mike, give it 4 stars. It must be good.
4 stars, yeah. Because I always check out the entertainment.ie reviews before I got to the cinema, and I was just checking it. I wasn't too mad and going to see it, but you know, I was like a Gyllenhaal movie, and then I got 4 stars, so I have to go see it, and I was let down. It was 2 stars max in my book, to be honest.
You see, you have to realise where the reviewers are emotionally, Cathal.
Yeah,
when you go to see a film like that, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
A bit of a man crush on Jake Gyllenhaal. Yeah. And I'm a bit sensitive, you know what I mean? And the whole Rachel McAdams scene to that and the daughter and stuff like that, I was like, oh, yeah. At least squeezed out a tear there. You know what I mean?
I nearly squeezed out a tear in Creed there.
Did you? Yeah. What did you think of Creed?
I really liked it, yeah.
Yeah?
Did you?
I did as well, yeah. I thought it was great. Michael B. Jordan is deadly. I didn't buy the whole Goodison Park holding 100,000 people.
Yeah.
You should have done the research.
Was it
there,
supposed to be Goodison Park?
Yeah, it is Goodison Park. That's what he filmed it. Yeah.
Really?
But then when the Scouts boxer walks out, sorry, spoiler alert here. The Scouts boxer walks out, and it's like Goodison Park holds 100,000 people. You're like, no, it doesn't. You know, the little things like that.
I just thought it was Wembley when I heard that in the movie.
Because it's the only place that would hold it.
Yeah.
But you've done a bit of acting over the years, haven't you? We'll get to all the fighting and stuff like that in a bit. But you've been heavily into kind of acting, and I
wouldn't say heavily. Just I've done bits and pieces, and just when I had the time over the last couple of years, I had a couple of small roles and different things. But it's definitely something I'd like to try my hand at now. That once I get the business up and running and I have a bit more time on my hands, it's something I'd like to have a go at.
And how would you approach it? Like, would you get acting lessons? Would you go and try and do some theatre work first, or how would you go about it?
Yeah, definitely I'm gonna go do some acting lessons. I think I'm planning. I haven't told my mates yet, but some of my mates live in London, and I think I might go over, stay with them for a month or two in the summer, and do some lessons over there, and then just get it out there as much as possible. Like I'm not shy about talking about it, and I think that's a good thing. If I'm doing an interview and I'm just talking about it, because you never know who's watching.
Absolutely, say, we was just saying to you there earlier. We've directors in here all the time. You should just hang around.
I might just hang around. Yeah,
set
me up a desk here somewhere.
And don't you hear about that shit all the time? With bodyguards getting roles.
Yeah,
or stuntmen and shit getting roles because they get chatting to people. Like.
Yeah, exactly. You look at loads of like people who are high up in the not high up, but who are in the acting game, get a lot of roles, and they came from really weird places. You see loads of models get in just on the back of their modelling. You see athletes like your man Terry Crews. He's done more movies,
and he's great now.
Yeah, he's in that Brooklyn Nine-Nine. Have you seen that?
Yeah, that's a funny show.
Yeah, and then I'll put this in silent.
Shocking, Pendred, shocking. Yeah. I threaten you, but there'd be no point. But did you never? I mean, because the UFC now is. Like, it's such a cool celebrity thing for people to be at, and you fought in Vegas and stuff, and you fought in Europe, you fought in Ireland as well. But did you never see any of the big names? Kind of, did you ever see them cage side, or did you ever get talking to any of the actors or directors, or like that director Peter Berg is a huge MMA fan, huge UFC fan.
Yeah,
he did that movie Battlefield, and I
saw some big names and over in Vegas and that, but I'd never, you're just met Arnold Schwarzenegger. I'm like, oh, hey Arnie, any roles going? But I would love to. But I'd have to have a couple of drinks with them before I slide it in there.
Yeah.
Just on first handshake.
Yeah.
Yeah, any roles. But hopefully I bump into the right person one day and I'm just giving a small role. Like I was saying to you before this, it looks like there's gonna be a Creed sequel.
That's a franchise. That's another franchise. Like.
So we never know.
But did you ever see that? I think I said this to you before. Did you ever see that show Kingdom? It's I think I was saying to you before, it's Frank Grillo, the guy that was in Warrior, the guy that was the coach in Warrior.
Yeah,
really good show.
And
one of the Jonas brothers is in it as a fighter, which sounds a bit nuts, but he's actually quite good.
Yeah.
But I was listening to a podcast with Brendan Schaub and Brian Callen, and Brian Callen is in the show, so we obviously got Brendan Schaub screen test for the show. So obviously these guys are all supposed to be MMA fighters.
Yeah.
And you know, if the crew and the production crew are very good at what they do, they can make them look like MMA fighters. You know.
Yeah.
But Brendan Schaub said he went in for the audition. And he was like, it was hilarious how everybody was trying to, because it was for an MMA fighter role, obviously. And he says it was hilarious how everybody was trying to look like fighters. They'd like the little scratches over their eyes and stuff like that.
Yeah.
And so you can't teach that tough guy thing, Cole.
That's it. Yeah. No, I remember you saying that to me before. I think I had a few drinks on me, so I forgot about it. But I definitely should get in contact with someone about that. I could slide it right in there. They don't need an Irish fighter in there.
Yeah, I think they've another couple of seasons of that as well.
Yeah.
But what did you do? You did that BBC show, was it? Ripper Street?
Ripper Street, yeah. And then I was actually supposed to have a much bigger part. Well, not much bigger, but I was supposed to have a really memorable scene where I get a Chelsea smile. Have you ever heard of that? It's like back in the day where they slit you here. And I was supposed, I was like this henchman for this like really bad guy, and I messed up or something, and I was supposed to get slit here and be screaming, and it would have been a pretty memorable scene, but
Deadly.
I think the BBC thought it was too.
They read the script and they were like, ugh.
Yeah, they were like, that's too much.
For 8 o'clock on a Sunday night or something, whenever it was. Like.
So I didn't get my torture scene, which would have been cool, but I still died in it. Which I think I've died in everything I've done at this stage.
What else have you done?
I did. There's a movie called Cardboard Gangsters, which is coming out.
I didn't realise you were in that. No way.
Yeah, it's only a small part now. I didn't actually. No, I don't die in that one, but I won't give it away. But I don't end up in too good shape anyway.
This chap Mark, the director. He's a young director, isn't he? He's made a couple of movies before.
Mark O'Connor.
Mark O'Connor.
Made a couple of Irish movies. And John Connor. Do you know the guy who played the Traveller in Love Fate? He's actually a Traveller in real life.
Yeah.
So I think that it was the two of those guys that it's their baby, and it's got a great cast. I think what you call him, Frano from Love Hate. What's his name?
Yeah.
Can't think of his name. He's in it, and a few more of the Love Hate cast, and I think it's been, the rights have been bought by TV3 now. So
amazing. I think just like everything is changing. When we always talk about this here.
Yeah.
Like it's all changing. Not everything ends up in the cinema anymore. Netflix have changed everything.
Yeah.
So like even like Adam Sandler's last movie went out on, as bad as it was, went out on Netflix. Beast of No Nation, Idris Elba, that went out on Netflix.
Yeah.
So people are more concerned about getting eyeballs in their films now, more so than
the big names seem to be kind of some of them seem to be more attracted to the TV shows now as well. I suppose they can kind of develop characters more over the course of a series or two.
And the British used to do it. The British did that for years. So like you'd get Idris Elba to do a show, or you get Martin Freeman or whoever to do Sherlock or Benedict Cumberbatch, because it's only a few episodes. It's 5 or 6 episodes. Whereas if you sign up for a series, a network series in America, it's like 20 episodes, 24 episodes, 6-day weeks, 14-day hours. So you really have to earn your money there. Like
so it becomes miniseries. It's what they're kind of going for, like True Detective. And
yeah.
And they're getting A-list cast. It's pretty cool. I nearly prefer watching them than the movie. You get more out of it. So,
everybody's kind of saying that now. I think that's definitely the vibe it's going. But you were in that later, weren't you? After you kind of announced your retirement.
Yeah. I think that was before.
Was it before? Was it?
I just went. One of my best mates had to take some. He works in LinkedIn, and he had to take his holiday days before Christmas. So we just.
Who do I know that's not doing anything? Cathal Pendred.
Yeah. So he got on to me. So we went over to LA. It was. That was really cool.
But there was no there wasn't work. That was very much just having a crack. Looking at your Instagram, that just looked like you were having a crack.
I was just I was reliving the youth that I missed out on I missed out on all my 20s. I wasn't out partying with the lads, and so
because to go to like you're only 28. Like you're for anybody to retire from any sport at that age, and you didn't have to because of injury, but you were 6-2. Was it 4-2? Sorry, in the UFC. Which is a really strong record for anybody in the UFC in a very tough division. Yeah. So were you kind of going, fuck it, I want to kind of get out of here on a winning record, or was it that, like you said, you hadn't had, a youth, you hadn't really had your 20s?
Yeah, no, that never really. It was hard at the start, but I kind of got over that part of not being able to do regular stuff. But it was just my love for it, my passion wasn't there as much, and I think that was one of my strengths. I had this never say die attitude, and I won fights on which on paper I shouldn't have won, but it's just through my heart and grit and determination that I outworked the guys.
But you can't tap people through determination.
No,
there's a skill set there as well.
There was a skill set there as well, but it was one of my strengths, especially I didn't come from a martial arts background. But when I kind of saw that going, and I just didn't have that passion, I wasn't waking up excited to go to the gym anymore. I just thought, I mean, you're in a business where you shouldn't be doing it unless you love it, because it's something where you could get hurt. So.
Was it because? Do you think anything had something to do because you had so many fights in such a short period of time?
Yeah, that may have kind of drained me. I definitely was drained going. You
spent a month in Mexico as well in May.
Yeah, that was a tough old camp. We did that at altitude. Like it was in Mexico City. That's why I went over for 6 weeks beforehand.
Then you just ended up chasing some fucker around the
cage
for 15 minutes.
And ended up running a marathon. So that was a killer. And then I took a fight. I think it was like 3 weeks after that in Vegas. I took a short notice fight. And then after that, I was like, right, I need a break. But I had the Dublin fight, and I couldn't.
You could not fight in the Dublin card.
The Dublin card. So I did that. It was all a bit too much, and I probably should have spaced it out, but I don't have any regrets. I would never regret anything I did. The only thing I'd regret is something I didn't do. So,
yeah. But you've always had that mindset. Well, you have a degree from DCU. Was it politics that your degree is in?
No. Analytical science.
I don't know where the fuck I got politics from, but
that's not really up my alley. But no, analytical science. I was big into CSI, and when you leave school, I wasn't sure what it is. Right, I've got enough
CAO points for this. Yeah, this sounds cool.
Yeah, so I'll go with that. But I remember one of the first lectures I did, and they were like, because there was a big forensics. It was pharmaceutical based, but there was a big forensics thing, and I think there was a slide in one of the lectures, and they were like, CSI is nothing like forensics. I just had a slide of all things, like, Horatio Kane there with his glasses in his Armani suit at a crime scene. They're like, you don't wear Armani suits at a crime scene. You're in white stuff. And
you have to wear gloves. You have to wear all that. Yeah, it's not very glamorous.
And then there was a little clip of him getting out of a what do they call those cars? The Hummers. You don't drive Hummers.
Every scene, this was Horatius, the ginger guy, who would take off the glasses. Yeah.
Say something cheesy and take off his glasses. So
they were telling you on the first day, look, this isn't for anybody who, it's too late anyway now, but
it was too late.
But you stuck it out.
Yeah, I stuck it out. I don't like to quit anything, and it was tough. I knew I wasn't going to pursue it, but I just gritted it out.
You wanted to get the degree out of it,
get the degree out of it.
Because you've done a lot of writing as well.
Yeah.
You've had articles in different publications and stuff. And when you were still in Cage Warriors, I think you just had your last fight in Cage Warriors. I worked for another publication. And we had you do, we had you do weekly, but we had you do 3 a month for us. And I've said this to you before, but I always think it's worth pointing out that my deputy editor had to do a few of these before. So my deputy editor would have to ring up people and have conversations and then like kind of write a piece out of it. Basically, that's the way generally these things work. But you were like, no, look, I'd like to give it a bash myself.
Yeah.
And your copy was clean. He said this. He was like, his copy is cleaner than if I had have written it. Now, for any sub editor or deputy editor or anybody who has to deal with that shit, that is unbelievably rare, even in journalism, that the copy barely has to be touched. So you hadn't really written beforehand, or you were just kind of interested in doing it?
Yeah, I was just kind of interested in doing it. I'm a bit OCD about grammar and spelling and stuff.
You're in the wrong place.
Yeah. No, I did the same thing happen. I was writing for the Independent there for Connor's last fight, and they were like, look, you can just do it over the phone. And I was like, no, I'd actually prefer do it myself. You
want to know what you're putting down as well as exactly what's going on.
Because I've done those before where I had to do them when you're coming up to fights, and I was doing another thing with the Mirror, and you do it over the phone sometimes, but it's not always exactly what you'd want to say. So I prefer be in control of what I'm saying. And
like, you talk about coming up to fights, I always find it kind of insane that the press that UFC fighters have to do in the lead up to fights, and you fought in Dublin twice, which was intense. I was there both times, and it was nuts, and the lead up to it was a little bit nuts as well. So we're in a business here where we be chatting to actors all the time and doing movie junkets, and a lot of the time you can tell they're pissed off and they don't want to be there. And in the back of my head, I'm going, think about having to cut weight and do more press and then fight on the Saturday night.
Yeah, do you know what I saw recently? Remember your one Cara Delevingne? Yeah, was doing one of these things talking about a movie, and she was getting asked these kind of questions that the people most likely knew already, and she probably had answered them 100 times, and she kind of got a bit snotty. But yeah, and I felt for her a bit, because I understand it, but that's what it's like as a fighter. How is training gone? Like, if I don't know how people, if they're in the journalism business in the fight game, and you're asking a fighter how is training gone, you need to reevaluate things.
Yeah, do you think it's because it's still such a new sport? Maybe.
Yeah, maybe that's it, or I don't know. They just need to think outside the box when asking questions, because you just have to think about it in the fighters. perspective. Even if training has been crap for your fight, you're gonna say nothing before a fight. You're gonna say nothing, but it's been
I need to work on my takedowns. They haven't been great.
Yeah, training's been crap.
The guys listening there, the other end, like
yeah. So it's the same. Yeah, and it is awful coming up to a fight and you're kind of hungry because you're cutting weight. Because
you previously you could refine it very quickly, but previously you would have cut a lot of weight in your Cage Warriors days.
Yeah,
you used to water load, was it?
Yeah, water loading, and there's all sorts of different techniques and stuff. At the end of the day, for weighing day, you're dehydrating yourself and starving yourself, which isn't the best thing to be doing, but it's what you have to do to make weight.
And what do you think of UFC have basically one FC, the MMA organization in Asia, have had people basically move up a weight class?
Yeah, I think that would be amazing. I mean, if I would have fought at middleweight 84 kilos, if I knew,
because your first fight was at middleweight.
My first fight was, and the guy was a monster compared to me.
Also on illegal substances.
Also on illegal substances. Yeah,
it was proven afterwards. Yeah.
Yeah. But if I was to know, because 84 kilos is still less than what I would normally walk around at, so it really is the ideal weight for me to be weighing in at. But if I knew I was going to be fighting someone the same size as me, that's what I would prefer to do that. So it's great to see one FC doing that now, and hopefully it works out. I don't know.
It's difficult, isn't it? Because this whole thing, because we had just a couple of weeks ago when we recorded this, it was the Condit Lawler fight, and there's so many questions that I know, because I think there's a more of an intense focus on MMA, and with Ronda Rousey and with Conor and with yourself, and in different parts of the world, because every country is kind of getting its own stars now. So there's this kind of intense focus on MMA, and then people who are kind of new to the sport watch and everybody who's fans a long time, and the pundits and everything else as well, to be fair. But they kind of watch a fight like they did a couple of weeks ago with Condit and Lawler, which was an incredible fight, and go, why is it scored like boxing? Why is it? This doesn't make any sense. I think people are kind of confused then. Have you gotten that vibe?
Yeah, you can understand it. I mean, what is a difficult thing is that it's scored round by round. I don't know how you would do this differently, but when it's scored round by round, and I think if you were to break it down, I think you could. There was two definite for Lawler, 2 definite rounds for Condit, and then 1 round that could have went either way. So when you're scoring it round by round, I could see where you would give it to Lawler. But when you score the fight as a whole, and you look at Condit's output, if you were to score it that way, which maybe would be the better. I don't know. I'm not a.
Because it's like you got people kind of saying it's stuff like it's octagon control, so you take the center of the octagon, how well or how much do you count takedowns, and then like you're saying about Carlos Condit, his volume was ridiculous. He threw such a high volume, landed much more than Lawler, but then Lawler did more damage.
Yeah.
So I think it's. And even to somebody like me, been watching it for years, it was confusing. But imagine what it'd be like for kind of new people going, I don't understand how somebody won here or how somebody didn't, or how the other guy didn't win here.
I can completely understand that, and I think that's maybe something they have to reevaluate. Like, you have to remember, it's such a young sport, and the sport actually came about through a spectacle. The UFC was a spectacle at the beginning in 1993 when they held their first event. It was different martial artists so it was a boxer versus a wrestler. It was a jiu-jitsu guy versus a kickboxer. It wasn't necessarily a sport. It was like something you saw in a movie, Bloodsport or something, and there was very little rules, and through that it evolved into an actual sport. But it happened so quickly that I think there's maybe some things that definitely need to change. Like, there's definitely a few rules that need to be looked at. Like, you're allowed elbow, but you're not allowed elbow like this.
And it's because somebody saw a video of somebody breaking, one of the people in charge of making these decisions saw a karate video or something, was it somebody breaking wood with a downward elbow, so they were like, yeah, let's outlaw that.
Yeah, exactly. So like, it was the athletic commission or something when they were making rules, like, yeah, no, I've seen karate guys break bricks doing this motion, so but karate guys break bricks with their, doing judo chops and punches and everything, so it makes no sense. And there's a couple other rules like that they need to reevaluate. But I mean, there's no harm in doing it. It's such a young sport, and it happened all so quickly. Like, 1993 is not that long ago. What is it, 23 years ago now,
since
so
it's evolved since then. Like, it's kind of insane.
So I think there are things that need to be looked at, definitely.
But do you think it'd help if it was ex-fighters in there? Because people have kind of said that before. They were like, a lot of the referees, John McCarthy, Goddard, all these, the best guys have all previously fought. They have a lot of training in MMA. Like, do you think it's important to have that kind of knowledge? Because you're not really sure how much the judges are kind of an anomaly, aren't they, sometimes?
Yeah, 100%. I mean, you can like, as much as anyone can watch a fight and understand what's going on, you don't understand everything. And you need to not be an ex-fighter, at least have extensive training in mixed martial arts to know what's going on.
Not like a keyboard warrior.
Exactly, yeah. I mean, you could be on the ground and sometimes this guy's going for a submission and the people watching or the judges watching mightn't even know there's a submission attempt happening there because they don't know the submission. So yeah, no, I think it would make sense to have ex-fighters, or like I said, at least someone that has trains in it extensively.
Joe, what I think is gas. Any MMA fighter talk now, like any of the Irish guys that talk now, and you kind of hear it with other UFC guys and former UFC guys. When you see interviews with them, they're like, when you ask people about like kind of inspirations and what made them take up the sport, every one of them has said like Van Damme.
Yeah,
like are you the same? I think that's same, mad. Like,
yeah. No, I what got me into martial arts was movies. I used to love martial arts movies when I was a kid. Bruce Lee, Van Damme, but Van Damme was more popular, I think, when I was a kid. So that's why I was when I was young, I was getting my parents to bring me to taekwondo and judo and all sorts, but I never found actually one that is what I liked, or never. What I guess what I've realised now, what I was looking for was mixed martial arts, because I was doing judo and there was no punching and I hated that, and then I was doing taekwondo and there was too much stretching and it was a bit tippy tappy, and I didn't like that. So I guess I was looking for mixed martial arts. But yeah, no, it's weird that movies were kind of what got me into martial arts, and now my martial arts has got me a couple of movie roles in the last while. So it's
mad how it works, isn't it? But it's funny, it's like you watch these taekwondo videos now, you watch the tournament videos, and they're a little bit nuts to watch now because it is so tippy tappy. Yeah. That's what you want to call it, for want of a better phrase. And like that's an Olympic sport, and like there's absolutely skill involved there at that level. There's no question in the hard work. But then when you look at something like as full on as MMA or even wrestling in the Olympics, it's a lot more heavier on the body. Yeah,
definitely. Wrestling, I've a lot of respect for wrestlers. Haven't trained in it. It's a grueling sport.
Because you're one of those guys as well who would have, that term, embrace the grind. Yeah. That's very much something that would apply to you. You put pressure on guys, you push guys against the cage, which is an incredibly effective way. Yeah. But wrestling, is wrestling the one that you found the toughest to do, or did you just gravitate towards it?
I gravitated towards it because I think my rugby background helped me out. Like, the tackling in rugby is kind of similar to a double leg takedown. So running through people, yeah. So I kind of just took to that, I think, a little bit better than the rest of the stuff came to me easier. But it's the hardest part. If you go for a takedown and then someone you fail on it, or someone gets back up, it's so tiring to do it, and then to be able to switch back on. And I think that's the most impressive the impressive thing. If you see guys from wrestling backgrounds, they go for a takedown and they immediately go for another one again after that, because it's so hard when it takes all your energy and then someone stuffs it.
And people don't realise that how difficult that is, especially if it's a strong guy, or your arms burn out and that type of stuff too. Like,
it's tough going. So yeah, it's one of the more grueling sides of MMA.
And to move it back to something else now, I think it's funny that I think you're not even sure if you'd signed for the UFC yet. You might have done the Ultimate Fighter, but you were kind of famous before between Cage Warriors and been actually in the UFC. I don't know whether the Ultimate Fighter hadn't gone out or something like that now. So you're in the press for a couple of reasons. Your arse was in the press once. You're not getting away with that. When my mother texted me saying, "Tell Cathal he's a nice arse," I was like, I'm not going to tell Cathal that, but I suppose I just did. But and then we kind of alluded to it, taking a piss at the top there, where this footage kind of went around the world, like went crazy viral, of you attempting to save a dolphin. You were down at a wedding in Kerry. Yeah. So was it a bit nuts for you to be kind of have all this attention before? I suppose you'd had a couple. Maybe I don't know if had you had one fight in the UFC at that point. Or you done the Ultimate Fighter?
I think I'd done the Ultimate Fighter at that stage. I don't know if it had aired even, but I had done the Ultimate Fighter.
We've got everybody coming up asking you about the Ultimate Fighter all the time. Were you in it? I can't say.
Yeah, that was annoying. But that was weird.
You talking about the arse thing, or are you talking about the dolphin thing? I love what did Chris Fields say? Because some people were asking if it was staged, and Chris Fields was like, if it was staged, Cathal wouldn't have had a t-shirt on.
Yeah. No, all my friends said that. So they were all skeptical of it. They were like, "What is that? A blow up dolphin? What's going on here?" And they said, "No, if that was staged, 100% the abs would have been out." So they are true. If it was staged, I definitely would have made it more Baywatch.
Stuff like that has to kind of help though, doesn't it? Like, I mean, people are realising that. A lot of fighters are realising that now. Like, publicity, press, it helps with sponsors, helps with all that stuff.
Social media is a great tool as an athlete, to kind of get yourself out there, but especially for fighters, because you know, unlike footballers or rugby players, we're not on the TV every week because, you know, they're playing games every week. We're maybe fighting every 3 months, so, you know, it's good to keep you relevant.
Well, you fight every 3 months, not everybody fights every 3 months.
I was fighting even more than that, but yeah, no, it's a good tool. Has its ups and its downs, social media, but you know, it's good to get your, because you know, in the fight game you do have to promote yourself a bit. No one does it better than Conor. He's kind of showing people how to do it, and
people are kind of copying him now.
Yeah, that's the thing. He's just being natural. He's just being himself.
He's always been like that.
Yeah, he's always been like that. But you see so many fighters now trying to be like that,
and
you can
cringe.
tell. Yeah, it is cringe. You can tell it's not them. Even fighters just overnight are changing, trying to be like that. But
it's funny talking about social media, because I thought movie trolls were probably the worst trolls. I have to say, because I've done that for years, and I did it years ago, and I'm sure I've said it to you before. I used to get crazy hate mail. You know, it's mad that people would give a shit over like something like Sherlock Holmes. And I remember I had some guy email me going into details about how I should kill myself. Like, I mean, insane shit. Now, it's funny because I'm not unstable. Well, but you know what I mean? Like, you know, I can see how something like that would affect somebody. Like,
yeah. Were you getting shit over your ratings?
I was getting shit over my ratings, just like the abuse you text me, Carl. But I was getting it publicly, you know. But so some guy commented or something like that, and it happens from time to time. I had some guy say under a show I hosted, and some guy sent underneath it. It was around the time. It was topical at the time. But he said I was about as charismatic as one of Trapattoni's skid marks. Which I was kind of like, that's kind of inventive, like. Yeah. But he said I was still better than that Craig Doyle fella. So I was like, that's all right, like. I was like, that's the worst CompuSalt ever. What have your interactions been like with the MMA fans so far? Because there was a lot of guys, we were out there recently, there was a lot of people coming over asking for pictures. Is it annoying after a while? And what's the difference between when people come up to you like that and the social media aspect to it on Twitter or Facebook, because you've got a huge following on both of those?
Yeah, I never mind anyone coming up to me looking for a photo. So yeah, that doesn't bother me at all. But yeah, no, social media, like I said, it has its ups and its downs, and yeah, one of the ups is you can get yourself out there and you can promote yourself, but one of the downs is that, you know, people who maybe you don't want to hear their opinion can give you their opinion. So yeah, no, there was I got a fair amount of hate throughout my UFC career through social media, but it's one of those things you just have to accept. It's the way people are these days. Everyone kind of has a voice now with social media, but generally, if I ever got, you know, someone slating me, if you go into their Twitter and have a look, like every tweet they're sending out is abusing someone in the spotlight. So you know, when you think about it, you sometimes just feel sorry for them because they're spending their day behind a computer,
just being negative.
Yeah, slating people.
But it's something that it just, and I used to think it was movies. It really seems to be MMA. People, I don't know whether it's a passion thing. People look, and you see with Dana White, who's the UFC president, and I think he's fucking hilarious. Like, this guy's the president of a multi-billion-dollar organization, and like he just hammers people basically when they've no followers and stuff like that. But you like, and again, every fighter gets this kind of shit. Like, and I've seen it in instances where like Brendan Schaub would have taken a lot of shit for whatever reason, and it's like, why would you go on somebody's page and go to just unlike the page? I
don't understand it either, but. Like I said, I generally just feel sorry for him, but you just accept that as part of the package these days. If you're in the spotlight, that's the way it is. There was a funny South Park episode about it. Did you see that?
Yeah, people have been offended.
Yeah, and it was a Butters or someone was being hired by these celebrities who were getting hate mail to go through their tweets and delete all the bad ones, so they just saw the good ones. But do you know who I feel sorry for the most on social media? Like, everyone it's not just MMA. There definitely is people. I think there's a big following of MMA on the internet, and I think it's because where the sport came from, because it wasn't in the media up until recently. It was kind of a,
people feel ownership over it.
Well, it was more of an obscure sport, so the internet was kind of where it was talked about, where it just kind of developed as a sport. So I think, you know, a lot of the fans come from that area, but it's, you know, it's everything. Everyone in the spotlight is gets a bit of hate, and I actually feel, because at least I was only getting abused about my fighting, that I wasn't getting abused about anything else. So you feel sorry for the girls or ladies in the spotlight. Sometimes they're getting abused about their weight. Either they're too heavy or they're too light. Have you ever seen
it, like actresses and stuff and everything?
I've seen a few stories about that, and like some of them will just crack up and reply
But
sometimes.
these aren't even trolls. Like some of these times it's publications, or it's that kind of TMZ mentality.
Yeah,
of
yeah.
everything is kind of looked at and everything is examined.
Yeah,
like
it's the Kim Kardashian culture we live in. Everyone's obsessed with.
you could have your own reality show now. You've been in one reality show already. You've been in the Ultimate Fighter. This could be this following Cathal Pendred around.
Wouldn't
Like
be my cup of tea.
just be you lifting weights. That'd be it. Like and fighting the odd time. That'd be it. Like. But
Yeah, I'd watch that.
yeah, I'm sure plenty of women out there would. It's funny because it's I think was it your first weigh-in, and somebody pointed it out to me and rewinded it. You were weighing in, and you whatever you do, you obviously have to weigh in your underwear, but you were weighing in, and one of the Octagon girls were checking you out. And I was like, Cathal Pendred's missus won't be happy about that. Like literally, like
Yeah. I remember a few of my friends sent me photos of that, laughing about it.
You bit of stick.
What?
It was giving you a bit of stick.
Yeah, I was just hoping there was nothing on my boxes that they were staring at.
They were like they rolled down a bit or something like that. Like, so you haven't been retired that long. Like it's literally it's only been a few months. Like so, I know you've kind of kept up training, but do you miss it, or have you kept training enough that you're still kind of in touch?
No, yeah. Well, I've only kind of over Christmas. It was just before Christmas that I kind of hung up the gloves, so to speak. So I usually try to take Christmas off. I didn't last year because I was fighting in January in Boston. So I was making up for last Christmas as well this Christmas and really overindulged. But I've been back at it for the last couple of weeks, and I'm definitely going to keep it up. I wouldn't be sane if I wasn't training every day. I don't think.
It's an outlet for a lot of people. Yeah, it'd be the same.
I just love to.
Have you not got people though saying to you like, oh, he said he's retired though, but like he's in there training and he's in there sparring?
Yeah.
Were you like, you're like, no, look, this is cheaper than therapy.
Yeah. That's exactly my mentality about it. But yeah, no, I remember the first time I turned back. It was just after Christmas, and I turned back up in SPG. And I'm gonna come back.
You're like, I don't know where else to go.
Yeah. Sure, I haven't been retired a wet week, wouldn't we?
I know you're friendly with him as well, and it's like Forrest Griffin said that. We said that after it was different for him, but he didn't retire. He was knocked out when Anderson Silva knocked him out.
Yeah,
his book is great, and I'm jealous that you're friends with him because I'm friends with Forrest Griffin. But he said in his book that because that's like a highlight reel knockout, and that's one of those knockouts that it's constantly played. I think it's on the intro to the UFC pay-per-views and stuff like. So that must be shit for him to watch.
Yeah.
But he was saying, and like whatever amazing things that he's done with his career. But he was saying that every day after that, he didn't know what to do, so he would just turn up at the gym. And it's like some athletes, it's different because it's different for fighters, I think, in a certain respect, because you have to be self-sufficient.
Yeah.
But like if footballers, I know guys who've retired from football who didn't know how to go to a doctor. It's like they were children. Like, and it's not their fault too. So I mean, maybe it is. They should have maybe sorted it out, but they had everything taken care of them. Kind of beforehand, like. Yeah,
it's a little bit different for MMA fighters because we're not part of a setup where everything's done for us, so we kind of have to be a bit independent. But I definitely I need to keep up training. And my girlfriend was going mad at me over Christmas because
don't lose those abs. I'm used to those.
Mate, she didn't say that to me now, but she said it was like a bee because I wasn't expending my energy that I usually would. I'd be popping around the place. I couldn't sit still, and I don't know. I've never been diagnosed with ADHD, but I wouldn't be surprised if I do.
I'd say a lot of fighters do.
Yeah, I just can't sit still, but I can't if I go training for a couple hours and I'm flaked out for the rest of the day.
I'd say you're one of the most zen dudes I know.
Yeah,
like you're very laid back.
But I wasn't before I found MMA. I found when I always had a direction. I was, but I was a nightmare of a little kid when I was growing up, and then when I kind of after I left school and I stopped playing rugby for a while, and it turned into a bit of a nightmare again, getting myself in trouble. But I always needed an outlet. I found that when I got to secondary school and took up rugby, just having a direction and an outlet to expend my energy gave me some.
It's funny that you were smart enough to realise that.
Yeah.
Or did somebody say it to you? Where you were like, I need to be kind of taking over here and doing something physically that's.
No, I just realised myself. I remember like when I was in secondary school, and I didn't really partake in rugby properly for the first couple of years, and I was all over the place. I never passed any of my exams. I wasn't arsed doing anything, and then I started taking up rugby. Then I took up rugby seriously, and it gave me a bit of direction, and everything else seemed to kick into place as well. I was studying more, and I was doing better in my exams, and just I was happier in general. And I just realised that, and then it was actually after that, or when that happened, then I decided I wanted to be a Marine. I was saying, right, but this brings the best out of me, a bit of discipline, something physical.
You were over in the States at the time, and for anybody who doesn't know, you have an American. You were born in America.
I was born over there, yeah. But when I was in secondary school, my plan was to to go to the Marines. But I think he's the second cousin of mine, and he joined the Marines. And I remember my family set up, because I was 100% serious about this, but he was home. I think he'd left at this stage, and they set up a meeting with me and him, and he said to me, "No, whatever you do, don't go in as an enlisted man. An enlisted man go in as an officer, which the difference is an enlisted man is go in without a degree. He said go in as an officer, because they treat when you're in boot camp and everything, you're just treated like shit as an enlisted man. You're an officer, you're given a bit more respect. So he says make sure you do that." So then that was the plan. But when I went to school when I went to college after school, I was doing business at the start. The first year I left school and I hated it. I dropped out, and me and my best friend did the same thing, and we were just working full-time jobs here, waiting to reapply in the CAO. We just came to the conclusion, we're like, why work here full-time for a year and then go back to college? We may as well go over to the States. So we went over there. I remember my dad shitting himself that I wouldn't return.
You're going to enlist?
Yeah, enlist. So I was close at one stage. There was this, because I remember we were in the shopping centre, and there was this guy at like a table like this. Hey guys, sees these young guys walking through. Have you ever thought about joining the army, the US Army? And I got chatting to him. I actually was debating in my head, like he was trying to get me to put my pen to paper there and then
right there
in the shopping centre. But when you think about
that must be nuts for kids, 18, 19.
It is crazy, yeah. And the funny thing is, we lived over there for, I think it was 7 or 8 months in San Diego. There was a Marines base not too far from where we lived, and at the weekends the Marines used to come down and hang out in the bars in where we lived in Pacific Beach, which was kind of it had a good bar scene, so they used to always come down there, and we kind of befriended a few guys, and actually made some really good friends. But the stories we heard off those guys was crazy, and they actually convinced me. I remember it was still in my head that I was going to do that, and they actually convinced me not to do it.
You just hear stories about tours of Iraq. I can only imagine how horrific some of that stuff was.
I wouldn't even repeat them. To be honest, they were so horrific. But there was actually, I remember there was one guy, and he was the same age as me. I was 19 when I was living over there, and he was the same age as me. He was a big guy in really good shape, and he was a football star when he was in high school, and in his final year he had all these scholarships coming his way. In his final year he did something and completely messed up his knee or something, and he lost all his scholarships, and he was from a relatively poor family.
He was kind of banking on the football.
Yeah, he was banking on the football, and then that was taken away from him, and he said himself, like, there was nothing else I knew what to do. I didn't know what to do, so I just enlisted into the Marines. He was 19 and he was over in Iraq doing crazy stuff, so yeah,
it's mad to see where your life could have gone.
I know,
like that's a left and a right turn
exactly,
there, yeah.
So I mean,
and then you came back then, obviously, and you found SPG. And was it long after that you'd given up the rugby, because you played Belvedere? You played very competitively with Belvedere and Keane Healy and a lot of those guys who are internationals now.
Yeah. I played with a few guys who went on to play pro rugby, and it was when I was in San Diego was the first time I stepped foot into an MMA gym, because I had been a fan of it. The first time I started watching it was The Ultimate Fighter. It used to be on that channel Spike. Do you remember that channel? And I used to watch it, and it was back when Chuck Liddell was fighting Randy Couture, and The Ultimate Fighter really got me into it then, because you kind of saw the behind the scenes and the discipline required.
It's mad how much that helps, isn't it? Giving people a backstory to people and really getting people invested in it.
I preferred The Ultimate Fighter back then, because you saw more of what was going on behind, and the mentality needed. It's kind of a bit bland now, but yeah, that's what got me into it, and I was like, yeah, this is the direction I could go. This is what I'm looking for. I'm looking for discipline, looking for something that I can, burn some energy, and I took it up in San Diego, did a couple of classes, and I loved it. I didn't have the money to keep it up though, because we were living week to week over there, and I got home. And I was just convinced I was determined to find a place and I found it.
Was it AKA in San Diego, was it? You were training?
No, it wasn't. No, it was a place called City Boxing. AKA went back to it
was after you'd been training for a while. You went back there.
When I went back to college, and I turned pro at this stage, and I decided I wanted to go over and just mixed up with a few UFC guys, see where I stand. So that gave me more belief then when I went over and did that and got to train with a few UFC guys, and kind of maybe gave me more confidence.
It's because I think for a long time, and you see what guys that maybe were on the cusp of it and never really made it to the UFC. It's like they were never given a chance to test themselves, really.
Yeah.
And on Roddy's the obvious one where he's beaten former UFC guys, but the sport just didn't have that focus at the time. It just didn't have, it's nowhere near, not a fraction of what it is now. So if it was 5 years ago, you mightn't have been given the chance despite being good enough.
Well, the thing is, not much attention, or this is not really mentioned much, but when the UFC first came here in 2009, it would have 100% been on Roddy put in there if they had his weight class. At the time, he was fighting featherweight. He went down after that, but he was fighting featherweight. There wasn't a featherweight division in the UFC at the time. But had there been, it would have been him that John Kavanagh would have put forward, because he was John's main, I suppose, his number one fighter.
One of the first pro fighters.
Yeah, and he was the most experienced guy, and he definitely would have been the most suitable to go in at that stage. I really believe he would have done really well in there.
And then been Tom Egan was at welterweight, wasn't it?
Tom Egan was at welterweight. He was, I suppose, the next in line, but he'd admit himself he was in there too early. I think
John Hathaway was it? Yeah. He was kind of a hot prospect at the time.
He was only 19 or 20, Tom, and he had only 4 or 5 fights. So
19 or 20 in the UFC, even think
crazy,
about that now. You suppose you get your man Sage Norcutt now, but he's kind of a freak of nature, isn't he?
Yeah, and it's different now because guys, the sport is so big, and people have been. You look at someone like Sage Norcutt; he's probably been training MMA since he was a young teenager, whereas most of us that were training back then and now, at our age, we just took it up later. Some people had a background, like Conor would have had a background in boxing, and Tom Egan I think had a little bit of kickboxing, but no one was a mixed martial artist.
Everybody has to then kind of learn as a teenager, as opposed to.
Yeah.
Do you think it's funny now? Do you think for the past 2.5, past 3 years, where it's kind of gone to where it is now and it's blown up? All you guys, and I think Conor in Sweden back in the day, because I use this. I was saying this. I think it's probably an apt analogy. Like Italian 90, I was 8, when Italian 90 came out.
Yeah.
And Robbie Keane and Damien Duff were kind of around the same age as me. Yeah, I'm fucking old now, Carl. But they were out, Robbie Keane and Damien Duff were a couple of years older, but around the same age as me.
Yeah.
So do you think it's, they were, and they've kind of said before, they were inspired. So Italian 90 and how well Ireland had done, that kind of led to 2002 and Pan and Damien Duff and Robbie Keane and other players around our age bracket have been the best players in the world. Do you see more people gravitating towards MMA now? Like maybe they would have rugby a few years ago. It's that more gladiatorial, and not everybody's going to take to it. Not everybody can take a punch or whatever. But do you see that now? Do you see more and more kids kind of going in at that level, learning really young?
You'd want to see kids classes now. There's no more room for them in the gym. That's not an exaggeration. I think they've had to cap the classes because the gym is packed full of kids, and it's a lot of it's down to the most highlighted athlete in Ireland at the moment is Conor, and for the last year he's just you can't look at a news website or anything without seeing a Conor McGregor story. You
won't believe what Conor McGregor.
Yeah. Clickbait.
Click. Yeah.
So there's so many kids, and I 100% believe that down the line there's going to be so many little killers that have taken it up that when they're 8 or 9 years of age and they have a choice between, when a kid you can't do everything. You had to choose either hurling or Gaelic football or soccer. Now mixed martial arts is going to be one of those choices, and I can see a lot of them picking that because they want to be the next Conor McGregor.
And even back in the day, it was very difficult to see it professionally, whatever about your weight class. It was just difficult to see how would you make money from this. This seems like something that's so way out of the possibilities of what could happen or what may happen.
Yeah.
And now it's kind of like UFC have been here twice in a year.
Yeah.
And there's guys like you and guys like Ash and Paddy Houlihan, as well as Conor and Neil Seary, and these guys are all making a very good living out of this.
Yeah.
It's not superstar money by any stretch of the imagination, but this is still professional athlete like.
Yeah, that's definitely, I think that's a big thing, because one of the obstacles we had when we took it up and we were throwing all our chips in the one basket was there was no one we could point to, our parents or point to other people and say we want to be like this. There was no route or blueprint of how to get to where we wanted to be, and because of that not many people believed we could do it. But it makes things easier for kids now if they say, I want to become a professional fighter. Look at Conor McGregor. He's got 15 cars and a big mansion.
He's fucking him and Ronda Rousey, the extremes there, obviously. But I think as well, it's difficult for and I'm sure your mum is the same, like, or your dad is the same. It's difficult to see, somebody get hit you love, like your family member or a friend. It's difficult to watch, but that's the sport.
Yeah.
So I think it's going to be a case of maybe some parents just, maybe having that stage parent mentality would like, get out there, make me some money, or it's because welfare is obviously going to be huge, like worrying about health and stuff like that. So it's more a case then of bringing in a whole thing on the iron now as well around the amateur aspect of the sport, because like to the naked eye, I don't think most people would be able to tell the difference between amateur MMA as it stands now and professional MMA. There's a slight difference with the gloves, and you can't throw elbows from the ground. Is that it?
I don't think you can throw knees either. But knees to the head, maybe, but you can throw knees to the body, something like that.
It's strange, isn't it?
Yeah.
And so how many amateur fights did you have before you went pro?
I had 3.
So was that a lot, or was that not a huge amount?
At the time, it was called semi-pro. To be honest, it had only come about. A lot of the pro fighters at the time who were fighting hadn't had any amateur background. It was either you were just doing it casually, or you were a pro fighter. There was no kind of stepping stone into that. So I kind of just came into the cusp when there was this semi-pro thing going on.
Which is it's pro. It's pretty much pro. You're fighting like pro, as you said. Like you're getting punched in the face full force.
Yeah, exactly.
8-ounce gloves instead of 6-ounce gloves.
But that's another difference now. That say a kid was getting into it now, the parents would be more eased into it. In terms of kids training, they're not going into a gym and fighting each other. The contact is minimal in a sense. It's not aggressive. And if the parents were to go watch it, there's nothing they would be worried about. It looks like any other martial arts training. Whereas my parents, I remember the first time they actually saw what I was doing, they were a bit taken aback. I remember my dad telling me a story about how when he first heard, he just thought I was doing karate or something. So I was like, I'm doing martial arts. I'd done different martial arts when I was a kid, so he didn't.
He just you wear a suit and you kick?
Yeah, he thought I was doing a bit of taekwondo or something. And then some friend of his had heard about it or something. I heard, Cole's doing that cage fighting stuff. And my dad said he nearly had a heart attack. He was, what are you talking about? So, so kids taking it up now. There's not that they're not jumping straight into fighting, and
they've got people to kind of look at as well and go, this guy's, you can get 50 grand if you do well. On top of whatever. Like, but it's not a huge amount of money though, is it, in general? Like, because you kind of hear people like and because there's 500 or 600 fighters in the UFC. Yeah. So there's obviously a scale there, and whatever anybody's at. But like, because it's not an inexpensive sport to do either. Gyms have to be paid, gear and all that as well.
No, it's especially at the lower end of which I would have been at, make money. It's you don't really make as much as you would think. There's a lot of expenses, even like stuff like medicals and stuff. You have to pay for them yourself, and then you're only getting paid per fight. So it's not like if you're a footballer or a rugby player, you're on a wage. So you can be injured and then it doesn't affect your income. If I was to have broken my leg while I was in the UFC, I wouldn't have been able to fight, and that would have been that until it was healed. So there's not that safety net there that other athletes would have as well. So
have you always had that in the back of your head then, because you're an entrepreneur now as well, you're setting up your own business, you're setting up Chopped, which a lot of people already know about, and it's one of those industries that's really taken off, one of those places that's really taken off. But have you always had that in the back of your head? You're always like, there's an element here where I could be a bit screwed, so I need to have a couple of other plates spinning. Yeah,
well, I always knew. I was always aware that being an athlete it's a short career, and I was always planning on getting out early enough. I didn't want to. You see so many fighters that just go on for too long, and it's just not right. So I always had it in my mind to just whatever money I made, just put away, for future endeavors, and. So I tried to minimize, like, even though I got a pretty big bonus on my first fight, I never went out and splashed out. I didn't even buy a car since I still haven't driven the same car that I had before my UFC debut. I always had in my head, put that away and make it. I'll go into business then afterwards.
And what were you thinking business wise? Was it always going to be in health, nutrition, that kind of? Yeah, the natural fit for you, like.
Yeah, the health and fitness industry was something that it's just something I believe in and something I'm passionate about. So at one stage it was gyms, and then I kind of thought more food, and it was the way Chopped came about was it was weird. Chris Fields was training the one of the owners of Chopped, Brian Lee, and they train on Saturdays, and I went down one day just for a roll, and I actually just said to your man Brian, I was like, I'm actually thinking of. At that stage, I had actually been actively looking for
something to invest in, and
not something to invest in. I was actually actively looking for a unit. I decided I was going to go down the kind of health food store, like somewhere where you could go get healthy food, because it was something I found very difficult.
You're cutting weight. You're acutely aware of what you can and can't do.
Yeah, and you just can't go out and get something healthy. When you're out and about, which you are as a fighter, because you could be going from one gym to the other, and you're on the go. That was the hardest part. Was getting something healthy. You always had to have it prepared. So I thought, right, I'll provide somewhere like that you can go if you want to go get something healthy. And I just said it to your man Brian. I said, look, do you mind if we meet up sometime, just pick your brain about it? And he said, yeah, of course. And he said, as a matter of fact, we're actually turning the company into a franchise. So I mean, if you were interested, you could open up a Chopped. And when he first said it to me, it wasn't really what I had in my mind. But then the more I thought about it, spoke to a few friends and family about it, I just thought it actually made more sense, because the business world is new to me, and open up as a franchise, you're kind of shown the way a little bit, and there's a setup there.
It's a
support system, and you're from day one, everything's in place for you to run your business efficiently. So it actually made sense for me to learn the ropes and do it that way.
When you're bringing your profile as well, and whatever you've kind of got from a sport that really closely aligns with what you're kind of doing now to a certain degree, because it's the type of place that fighters would eat. Yeah. Well, I remember John Kavanagh saying before, the SPG head coach, he was like, the odd time you get people coming into the gym going, I want to look like Cathal Pendred. How do I get that? How do I get? And you're like, and I had that as well, where you get people, how'd you get into this? It's like, sign up to fight somebody. Yeah. And the fear will, the hunger will go away.
But I get asked that so much. How can I get in shape? And as well, most of it's down to diet. Training is important and it's part of it, but diet is where it starts. They like to say abs are built in the kitchen. And it's. I believe, having been a fighter and having, I suppose, been at both sides of the spectrum, because all fighters, after we weigh in or after we fight, we really overindulge in crap food, and by the end of it you just feel crap and you can't wait to eat healthy.
It's like a cycle.
Yeah, well, you always feel better, like you sleep better, you just feel better when you're eating healthy. So it's something I'm an advocate about, is just eating healthy. It's one of those things, healthy body, healthy mind. So it's easy for me to promote it or sell it, because it's something I believe in myself. So it's the perfect fit, I suppose. It's
an easy sell, and they've got something in you as well, in terms of not even social media followings, but like just been a face that they can push out there.
I just have to make sure
it's on a billboard.
I was just gonna say, I just have to make sure I don't get out of shape now.
But yeah, I mean, have you been back in SPG much since retirement? You were saying just a little bit after Christmas.
Just in the last couple of weeks, I've only got back into it. And
did you miss it? Because I've got mates who are former professional athletes, but maybe more in a team vibe, and it's MMA, it can be teams, but ultimately you can end up fighting somebody on your own team. So that happened with you with the Ultimate Fighter.
Yeah,
maybe not SPG, but they kind of miss that camaraderie.
Yeah.
Did you miss the crack in the gym with the lads and
definitely, yeah. It was my way of life. Like I said, I didn't see my mates too often when I was a pro fighter, because I couldn't I couldn't go out and socialise with them at the weekend, because I'd be going for pints or so my core group of mates was for the last 6-7 years was a bunch of fighters. So definitely missed all the guys, and it was great to see them. And
your missus must have been delighted when you told her you were retiring, was she? She was like, I don't have to deal with being grumpy, couldn't wait anymore.
Yeah, definitely. She used to just, I think a couple of times she went back and lived with her moms for a week or two before a fight.
Go away on holidays.
Yeah.
Because it's a difficult thing because it's obviously it's an insane thing. When you break it down, to get in a cage and at its most fundamental primal level, it's a fight, and it's not a pleasant experience for anybody. Some person's going to be skilled, and it's in the training and everything else that goes into it. So it's a difficult thing for you as a fighter to wrap your head around, to go and do.
Yeah.
But it's as well as it's hard to be aware, and it's important to be aware of the people around you who kind of have to deal with the mood swings and have to deal with the. I mean, nobody can be a barrel of laughs cutting 2 stone or whatever you have to cut. Like, nobody can be. It's just not.
Yeah. I remember, like, I met Michelle, like, was it nearly 4 years ago or something, but remember the first time after we had met, and she was seeing me around fight time, and she was like, "What the hell happened to my nice boyfriend?" You know? And my family were
It's
like,
quietly spoken, like, yeah.
My family were reassuring. I said, "No, it's alright. It's just these crazy diet."
Sunday he's gonna be hilarious again. Don't worry, like.
Well, yeah, you know, you do turn into a grumpy L shite when you've done it yourself. It's torturous.
Yeah.
You know, that's one of the things now I will not miss at all from fighting, is having to cut weight. And like I said, if I knew if I weighed in at 84 kilos and the guys I would have been fighting would have been the same size as me,
That's not too much of a cut for you, like.
no, I would have definitely like gone for that 100%.
So you've put up some videos and stuff on your pages and your social media pages of your training. So you're lifting a bit more weights now. Is that what you're training like now?
Yeah, I'm doing a bit more weights, and because I actually, I purposely stayed away from weights for the last few years, because I've one of these body types that puts on muscle quite easily, and when I'm trying to keep my weight down, it's
you look great, but it's not practical.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, you look great on the beach, but it's not good for being a fighter. So I used to just stick to, either strongman training or body weight stuff like chin ups and push ups and stuff. But now I'm lifting a bit more, putting on.
So like deadlifts and squats and more of that type of stuff, is it?
I like it. Feels solid. Coming for the rock. I'm going for rock size now.
You just want to look good on camera now. That's what it is. Now it's all about aesthetics. You wouldn't even have noticed the aesthetics before as much. Now it's all about aesthetics, because you've done good bit of punditry work. You're starting to do a bit of punditry work, and I've always kind of said, and I think the best pundits in any sport are, when they're intelligent guys or intelligent women. It's that obviously goes without saying. But the best pundits in any sport for me are ex-athletes or kind of current athletes. I think the UFC is no different. I think to really be engaged with a commentator and what they're saying, and and I think TJ Dillashaw is such a good example of that, because he's so good at breaking down fights. So
Dominic Cruz, you mean?
Dominic Cruz, TJ Dillashaw, Dominic Cruz. That's what I mean.
He's amazing.
He's fighting TJ Dillashaw this Saturday. Sorry, brain fart. But he's so good at breaking down fights, and I did a 3-man panel there recently at one of the last UFCs, where and Rogan is very good as well. He's got that kind of enthusiasm thing.
Dan Hardy's very good.
Dan Hardy's great. He does a lot of the European cards. Brian Stan, I think, is one of the best.
Bisping's very good too.
Bisping is good. DC is great too. So you've started doing that. I know you've started kind of doing those type of shows with Satanta. Do you see that something that could take off as well, and maybe do that not just here, maybe on BT Sports or maybe wherever we'll have you? Or
it's a few people have been asking me that, and it's definitely something I'd be interested in doing. It's not something I would actively pursue, but if the opportunities arise and people think I'm decent at it, I'd be very happy to do it.
Because it's kind of hard to get people to there's not that many people. There's a very core group of people who can kind of talk about it. Never mind ex-fighters. Like I rate myself as an analyst. So I did one show there with Satanta before Connor's last fight, and I thought it went quite well. So if the opportunities arise, there's not much going in terms of Ireland. So if I do go down that route, or if I do end up doing it, it'll probably be on BT Sport over in London. But I know my management over in the States have been in contact with BT Sport, and they just let them know that if they do want me in for anything, that I would be interested in doing it. But it's not something I'm gonna solely chase. Yeah, you've a lot of other stuff going on. Yeah, loads going on. And we won't keep you much longer. But I know you went to the Vegas fights. You went to the fight. When was the fight you went? Obviously, you went over to a fight. You weren't obviously. You've been to fights before when you weren't fighting. Yeah. But the first fight post retirement, what was that like? Did you still get the butterflies, or were you like, this is just a jolly up? This is just great. Like, I'm just enjoying this. It's funny enough because I always get butterflies when my teammates are fighting, and I always say this: I get more nervous when my teammates are fighting because you can't control it. Like, yeah, exactly. It's out of your control. But I think for the Aldo fight, was the most relaxed. I was so convinced Conor was going to win. I really, really believed that there was no way Aldo was beating him. So that's definitely the most relaxed I've ever been. I just thought that stylistically, Conor beat it. There was no hands down. He was beating him. It's funny talking to anybody who kind of works with Conor as well, and like from that level, John and Owen to the other guys who move around with him or whatever. There was no question whatsoever. Everybody was so sure that I was like, no, he's just going to knock him out, and that's going to be that. Like, yeah. Well, it's hard to doubt someone when they're that sure. Like, when they're that sure, and they constantly say they're going to do something and they do it. I can't doubt Conor. If Conor told me he was going to become president of America down the line, even though you have to be an American citizen, I still wouldn't doubt the guy. He's backed it up enough. Yeah. How do you think it would be cage side doing colour commentary? How do you think you'd be at that? Yeah, I think
think I could do it. I do it at home anyway. So when I'm watching fights,
Your
so,
mates are all like, "Shut up! I want to hear Rogan."
Yeah, no, I definitely give that a go. So we'll see what happens. If I get any phone calls about it, I'll definitely do it.
So in the immediate future, then you're gonna kind of tick away, do a bit of acting, kind of hone your craft there a bit. And when's shop gonna open up? Have you any location set or?
Yeah, I'm actually looking at doing 2 locations now. The way it's worked out, so I'm just looking to put pen to paper on a couple of leases at the moment. I don't want to say anything until they're over the line, but yeah, it's looking like 2 locations now. Happy to be bringing because I remember when I first announced it on any of my social media or my Facebook, I was like, yeah, I'm opening up a Chopped, and I was like, oh, bring Chopped to Galway, bring Chopped to Blanchetown, bring Chopped to.
It's already a franchise people are aware of.
Everyone wants to, people. It's a brand that people are into, and there's so many people. Healthy food is bigger than ever was. People are more health conscious than they ever been. So it's something that's definitely going to work. People I know anyway don't seem to eat McDonald's anymore. Burger King, that's just something maybe if you might eat if you're hungover. But general day to day, this is healthy fast food, and I think it's what people are
it's
seeking.
convenience as well as healthy, like yeah.
So I'd like to open up, ideally I think 3 or 4 stores, and then I just have that, and then pursue the acting then as well.
How hands on do you think you'll be in the stores? Time permitting, obviously, like your time permitting. Like.
Yeah.
You're not going to be behind the counter making
No,
sandwiches.
I'm not going to be behind the counter.
So anybody hoping to go into a Chopped and be like, "Cathal, make me a wrap."
Yeah,
is that going to happen?
I've brothers and sisters who are. I'm actually just going to get them involved, and I think like they might run it for the first year or 2, and then maybe get someone else in. But that's kind of the way I'm going at the moment.
Those Pendred jeans.
Yeah.
Those Pendred jeans. Your brother done. I think he done no training power rig, and he'd like a 6-pack and stuff. Like, it's like fucking hell. Life just isn't fair sometimes. Like, you have to work hard for this alone.
Yeah.
But I'm looking forward to seeing what you do, man. I have to say, like, I wouldn't rule out seeing you back, and I've got a vibe. You haven't said anything, but I wouldn't rule out seeing you back in there at some point in the future too.
Yeah, it's not on my list of things to do, but you never know. I'd never say never anyway.
Yeah, you could win a heavyweight looking at you now.
Yeah.
I get dig off air now.
Yeah.
Cathal, man, thanks for coming in.
All right, cheers, man.